I want to talk to you for a second about a hamburger. I want you to maybe think about what actually goes into making a hamburger for lunch or if you go to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. First off, you got to think about the different parts of the hamburger. So you have tomatoes and pickles that somebody has to grow, and we'll get it more into these different things. We have to have wheat that gets grown and harvested. We have to have oil in order to make the plastic coverings that go around the hamburger, and we need oil to be able to transport things. We need paper to go around the hamburger. And of course, you guys are going to right off the bat think of the fact that we need meat, a cow, per se, in order to get a hamburger. But it's more than just the sum of these parts. Um, to actually make a hamburger, grain has to be grown, they have to use fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides, lots of water, they have to use machinery in order to get the stuff out of the field. Um, you might not think about this, what actually goes into just the individual production. Anything that you eat, there has to be a person that grows whatever you're eating, takes care of it, harvests it, and gets it off to market. Same thing with any livestock or animal material that you might eat. There has to be somebody that raises that animal, takes care of that animal to the point where they take it to the factory to get processed into meat that goes on your table. So, whenever you think about just what goes into making grain, you have to fertilize it, you have to water it, you have to make sure that there's no weeds or anything that are going to be going on to it. You have to make sure that it stays healthy, and then you actually have to use the machine to get that. Then what they'll do with some of that grain, and this is actually true of quite a bit of the corn we grow here in Iowa, the grain gets shipped off to cattle ranches and feedlots, and it's fed to the cattle along with water, and you get waste products, including manure and methane. Methane, you know that smell whenever you go past a large hog lot or things like that, whenever you're outside of the city. Um, that's methane that you are smelling. They then take the cattle by truck or train, and they take it to a meat packing plant where they're sold. After that, the cattle are slaughtered and made into large sections. You get the waste products from doing that process, the parts that don't get eaten. They take it to refrigerated trucks and ship it to stores, and they're formed into patties and things. Then they're shipped again in freezer trucks to stores and restaurants. They're cooked, and if you decide not to eat a good portion of your hamburger, it's actually thrown away after all that work of actually putting in together. But that's just the meat. That's nothing more than that. If we want to talk about the other parts, we want to talk about the bun and condiments. The grain is grown, used for baking. There actually has to be people that go and pick the tomatoes, the onions, and the cucumbers that are used for the pickles and the lettuce. They really don't have machines that go and pick these things. So there actually has to be a human that goes and physically takes it off the plant and puts it into a box and takes it, and then it's put on a truck and carried to a processing place where they rinse it and everything and process it to put it onto trucks to transport it all over the country to different places. So there is some farm machinery required whenever they do go to grow it. They do have planters and things. They also use chemicals and things to make sure that the plants stay healthy. Um, After that, you have the grain going to mills where their mechanical equipment makes it into flour. They take the little pieces of wheat and grind them into little tiny pieces. They put the flour into bags. The unused portions and stuff is shipped away. You get vegetables that have to be refrigerated, so that takes more energy to run the refrigeration of the warehouses and trucks and things that are transporting it. Um, some mechanical equipment can be used on tomatoes and things that are processed into ketchup. Cucumbers actually have to be put into a brine solution. So you have cucumbers put into the brine solution to make them pickled. You have your onions, all that stuff has to be taken and put through a machine and cleaned, and people have to observe this process. In a lot of cases, they actually have to do the whole process. After that, they ship the flour to truck to bakeries, and these bakeries put the ingredients together and cook the bun in mass quantities. Then they have to be packaged and put into bags, and eventually they get shipped off to local stores, to wherever you have them. And if for some reason the bread does not get sold, it gets thrown away. If we're just talking about the packaging, you have trees getting cut, and as we found out before, oil gets drilled from the ground, and it takes energy, or it takes oil and things in order to just simply cut the stuff down and to ship it. Okay, whenever it gets to where it's going, so at the mill, or in the case of the oil, it's going to go to the refinery. The mill is going to make the tree into pulp. That means they're going to take it and run it through and get it into the finest pieces it possibly can. They use lots of water, and they have to use chemicals in order to break down the wood into just simply fibers. Then they take the paper and they put it into large sheets, which are rolled and stored, and then sometimes what they will even have to do is they'll actually have to ship that paper somewhere else for it to get the printing done and the packaging done. So we have lots more things that are being used as we're transporting between the different areas and things. You have the refinery, the petrochemicals. That's where they're taking the crude oil and they're changing it into a new sort of chemical. They'll change it into ethylene, and then they'll change it into polyethylene. Polyethylene is a type plastic that is very commonly used to make different types of bags and boxes and stuff that you put your food in. After that, everything kind of gets put together, and they are able to take the items and put them together in order to make that wrap that goes around. Then they have to put them on a truck again to make them go to another place so that they can get the rest of the materials done. And then they have to take that and they have to ship it wherever it's supposed to go. So all of that goes into that one little tiny hamburger that you had. Every single hamburger takes that. So we get the raw materials, we manufacture it, we have to distribute and transport it, we have to use it in however way, and then we have a choice. We either put it into solid waste, or we can put it into recycling. Now, recycling is not always perfect, because you do create waste whenever you recycle, and you do and the material that you use cannot be used for the same thing. It actually has to be done downcycled into something else, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So you have to think about, we're using tons of energy in order to transport the stuff, to find it, to get it. We'd use tons of energy making the raw materials, and what you end up doing is only using the hamburger wrapper and the hamburger itself for not very long. But yet we're getting all of these things put out into the water, into the air, into the landfill, all sorts of things that are getting let out that makes it so that it pollutes our environment. Now, the other part of this is that this is true for everything that you have in your life, that you interact with, that you Your pencils. It always drives me nuts whenever I see people taking pencils and breaking them and stuff. Because what has to happen is they have to harvest that wood, they have to mine that graphite, they have to mix it, the graphite and the clay together in order to make the pencil lead. No, it's not made of lead. It's made out of graphite. Um, they have to take the pencils, they have to um, take the wood, cut it down, put the pencil into it. They have to glue the two pieces, the two halves of the pencil together. They have to make the paint. They have to paint them. They have to box them. They have to ship them, all for you to have a pencil. Now, if you're taking your pencil and you're breaking it and throwing away, all of that work went into that, and you're using it for a fraction of a second, and then you're throwing it in the garbage. It just doesn't make any sense. So think about what happens with materials. Think about all the different steps. If we were talking about making a shoe, the leather for shoes is often raised in the US. Then what they will do is they will take and they will ship the leather all the way around the world to China. And in China, what they will do is they will add chemicals to it and dry the cow skin and everything in order to make it into leather. It takes lots of harmful chemicals in order to tan the leather. Then, at the same time, what's happening is in Malaysia and the Philippines, down here in Indonesia, there are a lot of places that are making the synthetic rubber. It isn't actual rubber from trees that go on your shoes. Rubber is made with different plastics and oil, and that creates the sole of your shoe. So then what they'll do is they put it on boats and they will ship it again. And they will ship it to another place in order for the shoe to actually be put together. So all of these different pieces, the plastic shoelaces are made somewhere in China or South Korea. You might have some of the cloth pieces made in Central America or South America. All of these things are going back and forth across the ocean in order to just be made, in order to make the one pair of shoes that you have on your feet. Those materials might have gone across the ocean a couple of times in order to be made. So there is a lot that goes into everything you have. So think about that a little bit. Think about different materials and